here's the thing, and I know you got a lot of things to say, but I'm getting really, really exhausted with the feeling that every week we got to fix something. And I feel like every single week we watch a race and we come out of that race, instead of going, man, that was awesome, incredible race. Oh, that track delivers. Man, that was a hell of a battle. Instead, we come out of there and go, man, that sucked. We need to fix this. Man, that sucked. We don't need this anymore. Man, why did we do this way? And I'm doing it. I'm doing it too, right? I'm guilty of sitting there going, God darn, it was awesome, but I didn't like this part, right? And I don't know whether that's because there's truly some problems that need fixing, or if that's just the new norm in terms of, how we react, or how I react. I won't even put this on nobody else. I'm trying to ask myself, like, damn, dude, do you need to complain every freaking week about something? Can you not just back off a little bit and look at it for what it is? And I'm battling with that a little bit on this Martinsville stuff because, man, I've seen some races. I've been around this freaking sport forever. A lot of people have been in the trenches for a long, long time. I've seen a lot of races at Martinsville that look just like that. And it didn't matter what gen car it was. I mean, if you went back into the 70s and 80s, you would see bigger leads and less lead changes and less cars on the lead lap and less passing. And so I don't know that the sky is falling in terms of the short track package. And what I think that what I want to say to sort of back that up with is they made some changes to the car to try to improve it. And I think that those changes were effective to a point. Did they go far enough? I don't believe so. Absolutely not. But we did see a little bit better of a race than we saw at the two events at Martinsville last year. All right, the two events at Martinsville last season were not great, and we all agree on that. And this one was not perfect either, but it was better. They did make some changes. I want to give some credit, right, to the fact that there was, at least it didn't stay the same, right? While, I was looking at a tweet from Jeff Gluck. He says, and thank you, Jeff, for bringing some of this information to light. But from 1997 to 2015, 36 of the 38 Martinsville races had double-digit cautions. All right, at least 16 of those had 15 cautions. Right, so a lot of yellows. The last three races with the new car, the cautions have been 5 for this past weekend and 4 and 6 for last year's events. So the cautions are way down, and 2 of those are stage breaks, right? So there's really, only 2 or 3 legit yellows. But when I was looking at racing reference statistics, and I know this is a stat that is widely disputed and criticized, so I don't even, but when I was looking at green flag passes, okay, both of last year's races had green flag passes of 674 and 1233, like 1,233. So those are relatively low when you compare it to races since 2015 at Martinsville, okay? 674 green flag passes is ridiculously low. This race this past week had 2,026 green flag passes. That is the most since March in 2015. So there was racing going on in the pack. Hold on.
I will. I would be one that disputes that. But anyways, go
All
ahead.
right. I don't know how, they come up with this. I don't know whether there was a lot of shit going on. I don't know if they are including a ton of shit going on pit road and it inflates this number, but the number was large in their metrics. And a lot of those races back in the 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19 are 500-mile races. There were 100 lap or 500 lap races. There are 100 laps more than we had this past weekend. And so and this ain't not, when we're watching a race on TV, there's a lot of things happening that you do not see. And I've watched races on TV. I've been in the booth. I've been at the track. And even our own broadcast with NBC, we cannot cover every single battle and pass. We try our best, right? So I want to err on the side of, hey man, maybe there was more racing happening than we were exposed to. Certainly we knew what was happening up front. Nobody's passing the leader. That's a problem. All right. But maybe there was a lot of great racing that we didn't get exposed to through the broadcast, and so we react accordingly, right? I didn't see a lot of racing. I didn't see a lot of action. I didn't like what I saw. And so just I'm asking people to have a little grace with the idea that yes, there might have been a lot of passing in the field that we didn't witness, that we didn't know or realize. Maybe if you were there in person, you might have had a different reaction to a race than somebody who watched it from their couch, right? And that happens often. I mean, but all this to say, I do believe the changes that they made were a long time coming. I don't know why they didn't happen last year, so that we could have had, a better race in the fall. But those changes that they made did make a difference. They did move us in the right direction, but it was nowhere near enough. And so there's been some conversation on social media, but also Denny Hamlin talks about it on his podcast. Some of the people in the industry, Jeff Andrews with HMS, have talked about, horsepower, more horsepower. How do we get more horsepower? Jeff Andrews at Hendrick Motorsports says, well, we can get it, but it's going to take us 6 months to a year before those parts are ready. If you ordered it and wanted it and designed it right now, we wouldn't have this at best case scenario for 6 months, worst case scenario, a year. So that's if you ordered it today. Hell, we have to have the conversation to get the convincing to order it, right? That's another how many months?
Yeah.
Right? So to get everybody, all the collaboration that we've now induced into the sport between the teams, RTA, and the drivers and the governing body, all of those people have to agree that we're going to do this, and then the stuff starts to get ordered. So we're talking, if we're getting 900 or 700 horsepower back, that at best case happens in the fall of next year. So I'm not, these are to be highly disputed. But I'm thinking about what are some cheap, fixes for NASCAR on the short track, schedule. And if this, I don't really care if this fixes the road courses, because I don't love road courses anyways.
Well, hold up. You're saying that you're about to give us cheap fixes, so that does suggest that there's a problem.
I know there's a problem.
Yeah. Okay. Just make sure we clarify.
I think I was clear to say that the changes they made did help. They weren't enough.
Okay.
All right.
So this is taking it to the next step.
Yeah. What can they do, right? What can they truly do to try to keep getting us closer to better racing? So ripping more downforce off the car, that's a simple solution. Okay. They took downforce away. Continue to do that. If it's under the body, if it's the spoiler, if it's underbody, fine, whatever. Explore that avenue, right? That's not probably going to net a whole lot more of an improvement, because how slow they go in the corner at Martinsville. They did pull a lot of downforce off. We saw that it barely moved the needle, but it is a move in the right direction. So look at the brake package that we have on the car now. I don't know why we have this giant rotor with these massive brakes. I don't know who thought that, man, you know what? We need these cars to stop way better. At a short track in the road course, this has shortened up the braking zone. This has really taken away any kind of opportunity for somebody to outbrake somebody into the corner, charge into the corner deeper. If the braking zone's way shorter, all of that activity and that opportunity happens in a very small window. All right. So how do you make the braking zone longer? How do you get these guys out of the gas and on the brake pedal sooner? And that be a opportunity as they trail down into the corner to try to beat somebody. Well, you're not going to redesign a new rotor. You're not going to get a new caliper, and all of that package has to stay as it is. The owners, and I don't blame them. They're not going to pay for a redesign of the entire brake system. But one thing you might be able to do is go to a much, much harder brake pad. A brake pad that intentionally performs poorly. Okay? And so they could institute a rule that this is the softest brake pad you can use, and it will be much, much harder. Another thing they could do is to take the brake pads and take away surface area so that there's less pad material striking the rotor, and that will perform poorly, right? And so if you wanted to, if this is what we used to do on some race cars, if you want the car to turn better, you would take some pad material away from the right front so that the left front, if you didn't have the ability to, if you didn't have the ability to actually change the bias from left to right, you could actually take pad away from one wheel to make the other wheel outperform in the braking zone. And that would change the balance of the car. So we know that taking pad material, the surface of the pad actually striking the caliper, if you take away material, you're going to take away braking performance. So I think one of the things that would help would be to take away braking performance. And there's a couple different ways that they could explore cheap alternatives instead of having to reinvent the entire system.
Time out. Are you, just to clarify, are you talking specifically about short track packages, or are you talking about in general?
The short track, Martinsville.
Okay.
Let's just talk about Martinsville.
Okay.
Because this might fix a lot of other issues too.
Okay, gotcha.
We saw them, a little bit of conversation about the rain tire that they used in the truck race. Right. And Denny Hamlin was on social media a little bit about that, talking about how that tire performed and how it had a lot of fall off, and it's relatively soft because it needs to be soft when running in the rain conditions. It's a softer tire. If you ran that tire in the dry, it would destroy it. So, Goodyear, we're not going to redesign the braking system. So they're certainly not going to redesign a new wheel, a narrower wheel. They're not going to do that. They're not going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to make a smaller wheel, a more narrow wheel for a more narrow contact patch on the racetrack. And Goodyear's definitely not going to spend the money to redesign a different mold. What they could do is design a tire that had grooves, a tire that had less rubber on the road. There would be some challenges with that, because they'll have to understand how those tires will dissipate heat, not blister, not chunk. But if they have, if you want, basically what you need to try to do is take tire off the road, take contact patch away from the asphalt. So a grooved tire would certainly do that.
Holy crap, yeah.
I'm of the opinion, though, that the tire contact patch and the size of the tire is not as critical of an issue right now. And the reason why I say that is because I watched the modifieds run a big, big tire and have great races. So if Goodyear can't make a softer tire, which would be akin to what the modifieds run, they run a little gumball that wears out. If Goodyear can't develop something like that, maybe a grooved tire would be able to take away some grip. That would increase the braking zone, take grip away in the middle of the corner, slow the corner down, get the guy, all of these things would be able to take away the ability for them to charge into the corner, downshift, gas up, and leave the exit, right? Obviously, adding power is something everybody has been talking about. I don't know how expensive or inexpensive that is.
Or how time-consuming, apparently, after what Jeff Andrews said.
Andrew, is getting back to 900 horsepower, that sounds like a big jump. That sounds like a very long-term process. That sounds very expensive. Right. But what is 100, 200? How hard is it to give them anything? What could they give them back at a relatively low cost? That's the end of my list in terms of cheap quick fixes. the number one thing that I believe is the biggest problem with the short track package at a track like Martinsville is the shifting.
Right.
I don't know nothing about what that would cost or how to go even approach getting rid of shifting at Martinsville. If I was in charge of that decision, I would be working right now to get rid of all shifting at ovals. There is no need for us to be shifting a gear at any oval racetrack, any oval, much less Martinsville, especially short tracks. So that would be the number one thing I would tackle. I would get rid of the shifting, but that's likely a long-term project. That's probably, I don't think they can just pull some gears out or change the rear main gear. I don't think they can do this easily, or they would have probably already done it. If it was an easy thing to do, they would have done it. It's obviously going to be a challenge to get rid of shifting, but I would put that at the top of my list as a problem.
Well, the teams probably could do it quickly, but they can't do it with getting a single supplier, part or anything like that approved in a timely fashion.
That's the whole issue with this thing, is that the teams have to agree on these new parts being designed, and they have to agree to pay for them, and then they have to be developed and created. And that is, years ago, we just go change the damn gear in the rear end and fix the problem, right? Or we didn't have, we didn't have 5 different gears. We had 4 in a standard transmission. But I'm just saying, I would say shifting is one, if not the biggest issue. The brake package being so exceptional is another issue. The tire would fall in behind that. So those are the issues that I see.